for the corner office column. And yet, as we all know, there are no easy answers. There are no quick fixes. There are no silver bullets. And yet, we made, I believe, a remarkable amount of progress in an hour of conversation this morning with T, John Hope, Stephanie, and our other task force members. And we identified what I'll call three sort of main focus areas that we believe could be incredibly effective in starting to make some of the change I know all of us want to see. The first of those, it really has to do with incentive structures. And so I wonder, Stephanie, could you talk to us about the importance of some of these and what specifically they might look like inside an organization?
Great. So first I want to start off by saying that we do feel like the world and companies have made progress. We're going to talk about a lot of the things that we think we can do to make a lot more progress, but we do think it's important to say that we have made some progress and that things that many companies around the world are doing are working. So first, we talked about aspirational goals. And you'd actually think that people would have unanimous agreement that aspirational goals were a good thing. And in general, people did believe that they were a good thing, except it was important that they're just not enough. So it's not enough to say that you want to get the world or your company to 50-50. There needs to be transparency around that. And by transparency, we meant that there need to be transparency on what specifically is the goal, and then how are you doing at achieving that goal, and good and bad. And the reason for that is we can learn. We can learn from what's working, and we can learn from mistakes that have been made. The next thing is that diversity and inclusion need to be a part of the business. And so the idea that there's not a diversity scorecard and then a business scorecard. There's one scorecard because diversity is the business. Having diversity is a business imperative, and that gets to how do you think about compensating and promoting and reviewing people as it relates to diversity and inclusion, and it's just the same thing. If you're going to make it part of the business, it means that you need to judge and review and compensate people how they're doing related to diversity because it's going to impact the bottom line. The last piece was around ESG, which was just talked about. And I think, again, one of those things I think you could assume that there's universal agreement that ESG is a great thing. And in general, there was a real point of view that the investing community being behind diversity and inclusion was important because action follows where the money goes, but it's just not enough. And we need to make sure that people aren't just checking the box, that people are being specific about what it means and are making sure that what they're actually judging is working.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie. John Hope, let's go to you next. One through line of our conversation this morning was the importance of policy, the importance of laws. Now, you could argue, on the one hand, that it's at some level, laws and policies that are at least in part responsible for some of the mess we're in. And so it's going to take changing some of those laws and policies if we want to make progress. I wonder if you could talk to us about some of the things that our task force would like to see and perhaps some of the things that are already underway.
Absolutely. Before I say anything else, to me, two fabulous examples that diversity is a business case and not a moral case are these two amazing ladies sitting right here who are running some of the largest banking platforms in the world. Can we acknowledge this amazing success? President Bill Clinton once told me that it's hard to get somebody to agree to the truth when the lie is paying their paycheck. You'll get that later. The beautiful part about this conversation is truth and facts are convenient to the moment. Truth and facts literally will set you free. The largest economy in the world is the United States economy. And it's the most diverse place for aspirations on the planet. The two largest economies in the US are California and New York, or giving respect to where we are, New York and California. The two most ethnically diverse places in the country are New York and California, specifically New York City and Los Angeles. And in literally the poorest state in America and the lowest credit score state in America is the least aspirationally diverse, which is a state called Mississippi, which I have family from, but it is not progressive in its thinking. Policy and perspective matter. So why is it, as one of our great panelists said earlier today, that only the US and Papua New Guinea don't have a policy on family leave? The US and Papua New Guinea. Okay, you didn't get that. The US and Papua New Guinea, okay. And that should change. Why don't, it's another one of our panelists, I think the former US Treasurer, said that she has, I think, nursing lounges, that she proposed nursing lounges at US Treasury Department. Why isn't that part of the norm in our society when the family leave policy, by the way, proved that in 1 year's time, it was profitable, it paid off for the company on its balance sheet? Here's something that we can do. Internships and apprenticeships. Why isn't there a federal policy giving credit to companies for internships and apprenticeships? And when you extend your effort, when you do a double effort to reach those who are invisible, not just women, not just minorities, those who are invisible, you should get a double credit for that double reach. That is sort of basic. And why is that important? Because basically the middle class came from World War II, where we gave apprenticeships and the GI Bill and a lot of incentives to white males, who then created what they call the greatest generation. So I think that we need to sort of build out the bench strength, because if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. I'm giving you guys some good stuff. It's going right over your heads. So you're going to be whatever you hang around, and you're going to model what you see. So let's build bench strength and widen it with apprenticeships and internships by incentivizing that behavior. And they're doing that now. By the way, I'm going to give some credit to this administration. Joseph Otting, the Comptroller of the Currency, is trying to embed apprenticeships and internships into Community Reinvestment Act policy for banks, to give them credit for internships if they make investments in those communities.
Thank you, John Hope. Now, it's one thing to talk incentives, it's another to talk laws and policies, but ultimately what we're talking about is changing culture. Yeah. And Thasenda, I wonder if you could sort of take us home with this and talk about some of the ideas we had, and some of the important things that companies can do to make an inherently more diverse and inclusive culture.
Right. Absolutely. Well, first, I hope you all take a picture of this backdrop when you look at this diverse panel and it says playing for the long term, because I think that's why we are all here. You know, our businesses are here for the long term. And one could argue that our businesses cannot stay here for the long term if we do not truly have a diverse and inclusive workforce. A couple of things came from the discussion that I think are very practical about culture. You can have policy, you can have tactics, scorecards, and measurement, but if the culture is not ready to receive it, it will be an organ reject. And so I would offer a few comments from our great panel earlier today. But first, let me just ask you all a question. Does the company that you all work for or lead, does it give oxygen to diversity and inclusion, or does it water it down and suffocate it? Hopefully, we're giving oxygen to this conversation. It absolutely starts at the top. It has to start at the top, but it has to start at the top in an authentic way. When you're talking to millennials, Gen Z, women, people of color, just people in general, authenticity is key. Are you serious? Is this real? And so I do think you have to have leadership at the top that talks about it in a real and material way. Diversity and inclusion, we all know the story. Diversity is being asked to come to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. I hope we all go back and are asking all of our employees to dance, not just to be a part of the party. And so how do we do that when you think about culture? I think we have to manage to the difference. We have to manage to the difference, because if we manage to the same, you're not going to have the benefits of diversity and inclusion, because everyone is trying to conform to this narrow band of 2 circles trying to come together. It's when you can manage to the difference. Tail risk, if you're managing a business, understand the outside, that allows you to be more informed about how do you really be able to grow and capitalize on diversity and inclusion. We also talked about the process and systems. So the question that I would ask all of you when you think about culture is, what happens if you have someone who isn't a buyer? Do you have process, systems, KLIs, culture, an authentic voice that would enable that problem to get solved and be properly addressed? Because if you don't, you're just relying on every individual to already have it figured out, and we all know that does not work at scale. And then lastly, I would say that we need everyone to join the conversation. And so when I look out in this crowd, this is the everyone. We need white men, white women, Black, Asian, Hispanic, young, old, gay, straight. We need all of us in the conversation. And so I would ask all of you that the next time you have a diverse and inclusion conversation, look in the room. If the room is only your head of diversity, if the room is just the women and the minorities, you don't have it right. And if you get all of us in the conversation, we'll ask a fundamental business question around culture. Why? Intellectual curiosity, not why because I can't find them. Why not? Well, then why is that? Ask 3 whys on diversity and inclusion. Then ask the what can we do about it? And then spend all your time focusing on the how. I think that's how you build a culture, and I think that's how you can bring all the things that we shared today into making a real impact over time.
Thank you, Thasunda. You get a sense of what an energetic and inspiring conversation we had this morning. Thank you all, and thank you to our other task force members.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, David. It's now part of the time in this program. Thank you, guys. That was amazing. Thank you. I told you she made me cry. She's amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, David. Get your phones out. This whole day is exciting to me, but this part is the part that the sort of little boy in me is very excited about. My sons